Greetings, everyone. My name is Taryn Tharp. On behalf of the IUK HRSA organization, we would like to welcome you to the fifth installment of our Storytime series in the Business and Leadership podcast. Joining us on the show today is IUK Professor of Finances, Crystal Wang. Today, Crystal will be providing us with a glimpse into her experiences in finance and business, in addition to providing us with her own personal advice regarding investments and financial management. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me on the show, and it's my honor to be here, and I think what you guys are doing is fantastic.
Well, I thank you. We're so honored to have you here as well. Now, before we begin, we'd like to give a brief disclaimer. The investment advice that is provided on our show today is in no manner endorsed by nor a representation of the views and values of HRSA and/or IUK Kokomo. So, Crystal, could you please provide our audience with an insight into your personal background in finances and the business world?
Yes. My name is Crystal. I'm an assistant professor of finance at IUK. My personal background and professional background is very straightforward. So I got my bachelor's degree in finance from Southwestern University of Finance and Economics in China. Then I got my master's degree in finance from Syracuse University. I graduated in 2012. Then I worked in Wall Street for 2 months. Then I joined the PhD program at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. After I graduated in 2017, I joined the Indiana University Kokomo as an assistant professor of finance. It is my 3rd year here.
Oh, okay. So you've been here for 3 years and you graduated back in 2017.
Yes.
Interesting. Awesome. All right. Are there any interesting or humorous stories you'd like to share with our audience from your career? Possibly not necessarily like mess-ups or mistakes made, but just anything in general from someone running into something or,
Okay, I would like to share something, but I'm not sure whether it's interesting or humorous. Having been working for 3 years, I would like to share my personal perspective and understanding of diversity. So when I was initially looking for jobs in 2017, this is actually a question that was asked by almost all the schools. And at that time, my understanding of diversity was very superficial. So every time anyone talks about diversity, the first thing that comes to my mind is race. While after having been here for 3 years, I have new insights into this diversity topic. First, because of my students. I have many students have different backgrounds. A lot of students commute to school, and I have students who work 3 jobs while attending school. I have other students who takes care of 4 to 6 kids while attending school, and they are mostly first-year generation students. And I really admire and respect these students. They make every effort they can to attend school, and that is what really motivates me to be a responsible and great professor. Also, I have had a lot of training while I'm here at IUK. So for us as professors, we try our best to provide accessible course material in terms of the syllabus, in terms of Canvas sites, because we believe, and I personally believe that it is important for students, all type of students, with and without disabilities, to get education as a right. So that is the story that I would like to share.
Okay. So what personal experiences or stories led you to these insights?
What I told you, so those stories are true about the students. I know a student, she works at Coast and some other 2 places, and she's a finance student. Another student, she takes care of 4 kids while attending school on her own, which is very inspiring. So that's there's no way I can do that, to be honest. So that is what led me to my new understanding of diversity.
All right. So, in essence, working from the ground up, these people are coming from different backgrounds, not just race, but from different lifestyles and choosing to learn more to advance in their careers. Okay. um, Moving on to our next question. What developed your love for finances, and what is your overall goal as an instructor in that industry?
Okay, I will start with the first question, my love for finance. It has two perspectives, and that is actually what I do right now. So my love for finance, it's part of it is research, part of it is teaching. So I will start with research. My research area focuses on mutual funds, institutional investors, insider trading, international finance, financial institutions, corporate social responsibility, location of firms. So these are different areas that I work in. So I'm not sure whether you have this experience. So for a research or for a paper, it has a lot of processes. For example, we start with developing our research idea by reading a lot of papers. And then to test the research idea, do empirical analysis, sometimes it takes months. Then after everything is completed, we write the initial draft, and me and my co-author, we modify and revise it thousands of times before we send it out to a journal. And once it's sent out to a journal, most likely you will get a revise and revision. So we revise the manuscript, then send it out again, then revise it again, and then send it out and revise it multiple times before it's actually accepted and published. So it takes at least a year, sometimes 7 years for my professor. And the whole process is very struggling, but it's fun at the same time in the sense that it's very fulfilling to see your research develop, your research idea from the very early stage to lead to a publication. That is what I really like to do. The second part is from teaching. I teach a lot of courses at IUK, mainly finance-based, so financial management, international finance, which I only taught once, financial modeling, investment, financial decision-making. So every time I teach these courses, I have some new understanding each time, and the whole process of teaching and having students writing notes makes me very fulfilling, and I think this is the most rewarding experience for me. So both research and teaching, these are the two things that I really love, and these are the two things that I'm really good at. So that is my love for finance. And for my overall goal as an instructor, first to start with, my goal is to deliver effectively the information that I know in the easiest way possible to students. A lot of students are afraid of finance because it's a lot of math, which is true. And also, I want to get students be prepared for the job market. Frankly, I'm currently taking a business analytics certificate. So I'm taking 4 courses over a year. And after taking this certificate, hopefully I can develop some new courses that can meet the needs of the market for data analysis. And for example, last semester, I developed a financial modeling class, which helped a student to land it on a job, and I'm really proud of that. So hopefully I could develop some data analysis, data visualization courses in the future. So my goal each semester is to have at least one student convert from another major to finance.
Well, I know finance is it's very necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of companies are looking for more finance majors. I remember talking to someone who owns their own business. They said you can sit there and teach yourself marketing. You can teach yourself how to do operations management, which easier said than done, but you can still do it. But it's the finances that really get people that you have to have someone show you how it works before you fully understand just how to use finances.
Exactly.
So I'd argue that it's one of the most sought out positions out there. This is coming from a marketing major, but still. But with the next question, you previously mentioned in our 4301 class that you personally invest in mutual funds in addition to IRAs.
Yes.
What investment recommendations could you provide for an individual who currently possesses small amounts of cash or additional capital?
Well, first of all, I would like to clarify that in order to invest in mutual funds, most of them have a minimum requirement of $2,500, and they charge a very high maintenance fee. So it seems like this is very difficult for individual with a small amount of money. But there are some other options. So first, you could consider investing in high interest savings account. I know that currently major banks, they have very low interest rate. For example, I'm banking with JP Morgan Chase, and they offer a 0.00 something interest rate, which clearly is not attractive at all. But there are some other banks that offer around 2% interest rate, which is pretty impressive if you want to allocate the money to savings account for emergency. So that is one way you can invest. And second, if you are willing to take some risks, you could also invest in stock market. And there is an app that I use which is called Robinhood. It has a zero transaction fee, which is actually currently offered by a lot of brokerage firms. So you can buy and sell stocks for free. That is another option. And the third option, which I suggest, is to invest in exchange traded funds, which is also called ETFs. But the problem with ETFs is that, well, some of them are very expensive. For one share of ETFs, it can be a few $100s. And as students, it seems also very impossible. But there is an app that you can use, which is called Stash. It offers banking. You can buy stocks over Stash. You can buy ETFs, and you can also have a savings account. The benefits of Stash is that it offers proportional investing. That means if an ETF costs $500, but you only have 50, you can still invest that, so you only owe 10% of that ETF. This works great for individuals with small amount of cash. And another benefit of this is that it has a very low maintenance fee. For my account, I think it's around $1 every month, so it's not very high. And another benefit of Stash is that it picks ETFs across the market because there are millions of financial assets, there are millions of ETFs on the market. And it picks some of the major ones, and they market it in a way that is very easy to understand and that everyone find relate to their life. So these are the three channels of investment that you can consider.
So, given your background and expertise in finances, what trends do you personally expect the U.S. stock market to display in 2020? Do you expect to see additional growth, or will it be a year of market retraction?
That's a good question, and it's very difficult to answer. So let's first take a look at the current market condition. International-wise, I think everyone knows that the trade negotiation between China and the U.S. has been going on for a long time. I cannot wait for it to be done. And what makes it worse is that the U.S. next round tariff against Chinese goods are scheduled to take effective on December the 15th this year, which is 5 days from now. And that is why the stock market, the major indexes, were down yesterday. Investors were uncertain of what is going to happen once these are effective. However, China and the U.S., they are actively negotiating. And one of the news pieces that comes out today is that both countries agreed to delay this new tariff on Chinese goods. From China's perspective, they demanded some of the existing U.S. tariffs imposed on Chinese goods, as well as this December 15th tariff, to be removed. And from the U.S. perspective, the government demanded that China commit to purchase minimum amount of U.S. agricultural goods and some other U.S. products. So hopefully, the negotiation between China and the U.S. could come to a conclusion, and they can have some agreement eventually. And the global economic growth are slowing down as well, including Japan and some other European countries. And from the U.S. market, the Federal Reserve has cut interest rate 3 times in 2019. Currently, it is at a range of 1.5% to 1.75%. Which is good in the sense that it makes mortgage, it makes auto loan as well as personal loan more cheaper to borrow. And that is used to boost the U.S. economy. And that's one. And second, the U.S. unemployment rate based on the last month data is 3.5%, which is the lowest level since 1969. So last month, 266,000 jobs were added. Third, the U.S. inflation is very stable at 1.8%. And the U.S. economy is expected to grow at a rate of 2%. So combining international and U.S. evidence, everything seems okay. But there are some evidence for the recession. And the first is that the yield on 10-year T-bill versus the 2-year has been lower than the 2-year T-bill rate, which is an indication of market recession. At the same time, this is also a piece of news that just came out yesterday. The S&P 500 currently is at its highest in 6 years. With that, investors, they put $135 billion from U.S.-focused mutual funds and exchange-traded funds this year because investors are worried about the China-U.S. trade war and the potential or possibility of recession. So it is a very good question, but let's wait and see what happens.
All right. So I am one of those people that is unfamiliar or doesn't keep up with the news when it comes to the China and the U.S. trades. Do you know exactly what all is being discussed as to what the U.S. is trying to gain from China and what China is trying to either A, ask America why, or B, get in return from America?
Oh, well, I think the detailed agreement, we probably do not know that information. But as I just mentioned, that there are several rounds of tariffs on Chinese goods, and China is actively negotiating with U.S. to remove those tariffs. And from the U.S. perspective, because once U.S. imposed tariffs on Chinese goods, China also fought back and have several tariffs from U.S. agriculture and auto industry, which is the main industry in Indiana. So they also have tariffs on that. And President Trump, he demanded China to remove those tariffs and to commit a minimum purchase of U.S. agriculture products and some other products as well. So I think that's what they are negotiating on, and I'm not sure what type of agreement they will reach on, but let's hope for the best.
All right. And before our time concludes today, what is a personal word of advice you would like to provide to our listening audience regarding the management of personal finances?
Well, the one sentence advice would be to manage your money wisely and do not put all eggs in one basket. Now, what that means is that because there are a lot of financial assets out there, as I discussed, we have high interest savings account, exchange traded funds, mutual funds, stocks, bond and financial derivatives such as futures and options to invest. So if you have enough asset or if you have a large amount of assets, you want to make sure that you allocate and diversify your portfolio. And the personal investment, it also depends on the risk aversion level of an investor as well as the age of an investor. For example, for me, I have maybe 35 years until I graduate. Well, I'm sorry, until I retire. So that basically means I have enough time to suffer some losses. And if that is the case, and then I can afford to allocate some of my capital in risky assets or stock-based mutual funds because there is 35 years ahead and I don't have to worry about near-term volatility. On the other hand, if someone is going to retire in 1 year, and at that time, it's best for them to shift their investment into some safer financial assets such as bonds and savings account. Because they're going to retire, they cannot afford very high volatility of their financial assets. And it also based on investors' risk aversion. If an investor likes risk, then he can consider investing in some financial derivatives such as futures, options, and swaps. But if not, then just stick with mutual funds and ETFs. And recently, there is an intelligence portfolio, which uses artificial intelligence technology to help investors make investment decisions. So I have my financial assets with Fidelity mutual funds, with stash mutual funds, with intelligence portfolio, with a savings account. So that's pretty much my advice for management of personal finances.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our episode of Storytime here for the HRSA podcast. We'd like to thank everyone listening here for joining us today, listening to the wonderful advice provided by Professor Crystal Wang. Thank you so much, Crystal, for coming in today and helping us develop our own professional careers and understand in greater detail how finances work.
Thank you again for having me here, and good luck.
Why, thank you.